Support for this program is provided in part by Guido's Fresh Marketplace. Welcome to my cooking show, The Natural Cook. I'm Anna Gershenson. Today we're tuning in for the second part of the special preparation for Thanksgiving. This is a very special holiday for all of us and for our family who immigrated in 1975 and is enjoying this holiday more than any other holiday that we are celebrating because it is not tied to any religious themes, and we come together just to count our blessings, to remember wonderful things that happened to us, and to enjoy our time with our family. I showed already the sides in the first episode, so you can go back and watch it, and today we are going to be focusing on stuffing and turkey. We are going to take a little time to interview local farmers. Ashley Amsden and Michael Gallagher is not going to be in the interview, but he runs the farm together with her. So talk turkey as well. So let's start with the stuffing. For the stuffing, I use cornbread and I make it myself. So I'm going to show you today how I make my cornbread. First, we need to prepare all our ingredients that are flour. I use the white flour and whole wheat pastry flour, cornmeal, some salt, leavening, some buttermilk. You can use milk for it if you want to, and so eggs, and let's proceed. So first I'll show you how I measure my ingredients. First of all, I prepare the bowl here, and I also have a piece of wax paper. It's very convenient that you can just pile everything there and then get rid of it without making anything messy. So when you are measuring your dry ingredients, it's very important that you scoop the flour into the measuring cup lightly. You do not shake it, you do not compact it, you just let it settle there, and then you will make a sweep, and your measurements are done. This is going to go in our bowl, as well as, so it's half a cup of all-purpose white flour. I also use whole wheat pastry flour, half and half. You can use all white if that's your preference, and 3/4 cups of cornmeal. As you see, the cornmeal is quite fine. Sometimes they sell cornmeal that looks kind of coarse. I prefer finer grind, but it's up to you, whatever you can find. And the leavening, which will help it rise. So we are going to measure 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And because we are using today buttermilk, we also will add baking soda as our leavening because it interacts with buttermilk. And if you use milk, then you don't need baking soda. So as you see, I'm also following the same kind of pattern, that I fill it and then sweep it and add it. And then salt. We'll add about half a teaspoon of salt. You can add sugar if you want to. I'm not adding it here, but you can if you want it a little on the sweeter side. So this is a wonderful whisk that can serve also kind of like a folding tool. I do not do anything but just combine it thoroughly so that all my ingredients are mixed here together. Of course, my oven is preheated to 400 degrees. That's kind of like the best temperature to cook it at. And I'm turning on my skillet. This is where I'm going to melt my butter. I use good quality butter. If you can use grass-fed, that would be best because it has all these omega-3s in it, and it comes from sustainably raised cows. All right, so my dry ingredients are ready, and at this point, I'm putting 4 tablespoons of butter into my skillet so that it would melt. Now, I want the skillet to get pretty hot because even though the oven is preheated, but I want to have cornbread cooking right away, and the hot skillet is going to accomplish that goal. So the butter is melting, and I'm taking my eggs, which are also free range. The yolk is beautiful and bright. Okay. I am beating my eggs. And adding buttermilk. It's a cup of buttermilk. It's already pre-measured here. I am adding the buttermilk. And then I am adding my dry ingredients. I am putting them in all at once. And if your butter is a little bit browned, then it's even will add kind of like a brown hazelnutty overtones to your bread. So don't be afraid to let it brown a little bit. Make sure that the sides are all coated, because that's where the cornbread is going to go in. Okay, so mix it together. Make sure that it's all incorporated. And as you can see, I'm just rotating my bowl and mixing it nicely to make sure that the flour and buttermilk are blended well together. And then I will add the butter. I will add about 3 tablespoons, and I will use 1 tablespoon in the skillet to make sure that it gets nice and buttery on the bottom. So I'll incorporate the butter. This is why I like this whisk. You see how it's sweeping the sides nicely, and at the same time incorporating the ingredients. Then I'm pouring it in. And the skillet is hot, and you can see on the sides the batter is already seizing and beginning to cook. Okay, and at this point, we are going to grab this skillet and put it into our preheated oven for 20 minutes. Okay, now we are going to proceed preparing our stuffing while the cornbread is cooking. I actually have some cornbread that is ready, and I'll let you know what I did with it so that it would be ready to go into our stuffing. However, we have to do some other things that are yummy that go into our stuffing. So it's the onion, celery, sausages, herbs, then apple, dried cherries, all the delicious stuff. So you can use either sweet butter or you can use oil, and you can use a combination in order to saute your onion. I use good ingredients, and they are going to, the fat in your stuffing is an important component to make it delicious, savory, and satisfying. And the turkey sausage that I'm using, which is also sustainable without hormones or antibiotics, it actually doesn't have too much fat. So I go ahead and put like good amount of fat to saute my onions and celery. All right. I will use 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'll add a couple of tablespoons of oil. And then when it's nice and heated, not too hot, you don't want to scorch your onions right away, I will use the onions. So I can show you again how I cut my onions. I start first with the side that doesn't have the root at the end, and then I would peel it and make sure that you do not take off more than you need, because all the vitamins are closest to the skin. So you just want to take off whatever part is appearing nice and clean to you, and then just rotate the onion to remove this part, but at the same time keeping the root side intact together. And then put it down firmly, cut it in half, and then you will start holding it tightly and making incisions that go along the lines. You can see these lines that they're like very visible on the onion, and along these lines you are making equal cuts that don't go all the way through so that this doesn't fall apart, and then you do your dice. So this is what we do to make it clear. And then our fat has melted, and it's okay. Adding onions. Let's try to increase our temperature because I don't hear any sound, and this lets me know that the skillet is not really that hot. Okay, so we are going to cook our onions. I will sprinkle some salt to help the water start coming out and softening the onions. And so once the onions are on the softer side, we will add the celery, and then we'll cook them together. So while onions and celery are cooking and the cornbread is baking, we are going to take a short break and come back. As you can see, my onions and celery are done. They are nicely browned. They are not really, they have like a nice caramelized color, and they are both soft. And as you can see, I'm putting a lot of onions and celery into my stuffing. I use 4 cups of onions, so it's 1.5 pounds. 6 ounces gives you 1 cup. And then I put 2 cups of chopped celery. So now that they are ready, I will be putting them into the bowl in which I will be assembling all my stuffing ingredients. So after the onions, we're going to cook now sausages. And then while sausages are cooking, I will show you what I'm doing with my cornbread that I just pulled out of the oven. So we are putting it back onto a heat and having it pretty hot so that it can start cooking right away. I already removed casings from these Italian sausages. These are mild Italian sausages. You can use hot ones. I will put a little bit of oil to start with, and then I will break up the sausages, and they will be browning. They don't have to cook them through. However, make sure that because they are not cooked through, that you do not let your family members taste them, because you need to cook turkey completely in order to be able to eat it safely. So we are putting our turkey, breaking them into chunks so that everybody gets like a nice glob when they dig into the stuffing, and start making sure that they are not really stuck together to start cooking them. Okay. I probably will add a little bit more fat, cooking fat. As I said, that these have not really been made with a lot of fat in them. If you have fatty meat, then it will be cooking in its own meat. So I will add some more oil and proceed scraping and turning, making sure that our sausages are nice and brown. Okay, so while they're cooking and browning, I will go over to our cornbread. I pulled it out of the oven, and you can see the edges have separated. I also, if you stick a knife inside, you'll see that it comes out clean. And you want to take it out of the pan. However, right now I'm going to oil my dish in which I will be cooking the stuffing. And then we'll put it aside. Okay. Now, in order to take this out of the pan, you will just tilt it, put it onto your hand and onto the cooling rack to cool completely. Let's make sure that our turkey is cooking evenly here. And as you can see, you have these beautiful brown sausages, and at the end I want to make sure that all this brown delicious stuff is going into the stuffing. I will pour some turkey into it turkey stock in order to loosen it up. Okay, so into it we also put the apple that I'm peeling. This is a Granny Smith. It's a nice tart apple. So I'm going to peel it and cut it. I will show you how I'm taking the core out. I'll just cut it in half, and I use a melon baller in order to take the core out. That saves you time. And in the meantime, the other ingredients that go into the stuffing are fresh herbs. Thyme and sage are wonderful for the stuffing. They go very nicely with the cornbread. So here I already have my herbs prepared. I will take the baller and I will just rotate it and take the core out, and then cut them into about 1/2-inch pieces. And also the cornbread I will cut into about 3/4-inch cubes that I will put on a baking sheet, 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes until they kind of dry up. Okay, so as you can see, our stuffing is browning nicely. I'm chopping my apples. Okay, cutting them into cubes and adding them to my stuffing. Okay, here it's a little thicker. All right. So we will have all these wonderful ingredients that add flavor to our stuffing that will go into it. So let's add the apples. All right. Then we'll chop the herbs. Okay, in order to take thyme off the stem, it's easier to go across in a downside direction, and then at the end where there is a soft part, you're just pulling it off. Okay, all right. Our turkey is done. I am going to add it to our pan, and then, like I said, I'm going to make sure to take all these bits that add so much flavor. Add the turkey stock. I usually make my own stock, but here it's up to you. You can use purchased or you can make your own. So you'll scrape all these bits, let it soften, and chop your thyme as well as sage, which of course, besides wonderful flavor, add absolutely fantastic antioxidant properties. You can smell The stronger the smell, the more you know that this stuff adds of the wonderful things to your food. And then, of course, you won't forget to taste. So you chop it quickly. Okay, so dried cherries or dried figs are the options that you can put. I chose dried cherries, or you can put both, because dried cherries have this tart flavor. They are tart dried cherries, not sweet ones. And they will add a very nice component, flavor component to your stuffing. So now I'm adding everything else. Okay. I also don't forget to salt, black pepper. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees. You are going to cook it closed with the foil on for about half an hour, and then removing the foil for additional 15 minutes until everything is browned. Everything is pretty much cooked through. You just want to make sure that apples are soft, so make sure to try the apples for softness before you take it out. Okay, and now we will pour our stock to soften everything. You can use about a cup of stock, and then to see how everything is combined together. If there is enough moisture, and you can add more if you feel that you need it. And now I'm just going to lick my finger. The flavor is very nice. Put it into our dish. Cover it and put it into the oven. So while it's baking, we are going to take a break and come back and talk about turkey. So, as you can see, the stuffing is out of the oven. It looks luscious. It smells absolutely incredible. The crusty cornbread and the soft apples that you see, you don't even have to poke in. You see how they are translucent. So we'll dig into it later, but in the meantime, I want to go quickly over the ingredients that I put into it. I had about 4 cups of cornbread. I also had 1 cup of cherries, 1 large apple. I had 4 cups of onions that were chopped, as well as 2 cups of celery that was chopped. I also added 2 teaspoons of chopped thyme, actually 4 teaspoons of chopped fresh thyme and 2 teaspoons of chopped fresh sage. A great ingredient to add into this mix is parsley. It always adds this perfume quality, and also ingredients that are the ingredient that is good and healthy for you. So I would chop like up to half a cup to cup of parsley and put there. And before I put it into the oven, I added a little bit more stock. I added a cup of stock to mix at the beginning, but then knowing that you need more moisture for apples to cook through and for everything to come together, I added maybe another half a cup of turkey. So we will taste it later. In the meantime, I wanted to share with you how I cook turkey. And before I go ahead and talk to you about cooking turkey, I wanted to introduce you to a farmer that I met in downtown Pittsfield Farmers Market. Her name is Ashley Amsden, and she is married to Michael Gallagher. Together they run Square Roots Farm, and they are a sustainable farm, and I'm a big fan of sustainable food. And so I'm fortunate to live here in the Berkshires, where there is a big proliferation of small farms that feed us wonderful food. Ashley, I see that you have a variety of offerings here, including pork and chicken, as well as vegetables. I wanted to know more about your farming, animal husbandry, and what makes it sustainable.
All right, yeah, so we do a variety of pasture-based meats. We do 100% grass-fed beef, so the cows are on pasture through the whole growing season. They're eating only what they can forage, and then hay that's grown locally in the wintertime. We do pasture-raised pork, chicken, eggs, duck, and Thanksgiving turkeys. And what pasture-raised means in that context is that they are on green growing pasture for as much of the season as possible. They're also being supplemented with locally grown non-GMO grains. Those animals can't survive on just grass alone. They need some kind of concentrated protein. And so we get the grain for them also. But it's really that pasture-raised practice that makes the difference. It's in terms of quality of life for the animals. We have fewer parasite problems because they're moving frequently. And then because they're eating a lot of green growing stuff that they're finding on their own, it changes the quality of the meat. It tastes better, it's got a richer flavor. And in terms of nutrition, there have been some studies that show that they have more of the omega-3s and the better fats and the better cholesterols and fewer of the kinds of fats and cholesterols that you don't want. So that's what our practice looks like.
Yes, that's very true. We actually we hear a lot about omega-3s, and we don't realize that you can get omega-3s from grass-fed pastured beef because that's where these fats are, in the grass. So why have you decided to be a farmer?
So my husband and I actually both came from a teaching background. So things that we are drawn to are things that involve a lot of meaning and feeling like we're serving our community. Farming really spoke to us because we're interested in sustainability and being part of a world in which we don't rely so much on large corporations or practices that are damaging to the environment. And farming is just so intellectually challenging. There's such a variety in terms of the challenges that you meet from day to day, and it's so rewarding because we're producing something that's high quality and that everybody needs. Everybody has to eat, and we just love being able to provide that for our community.
Okay, so now that you met our wonderful farmer, Ashley, and you know more about what they do and the husbandry that they have, I'm talking about turkey. So after I buy my turkey, I salt it first. It's called dry salting. What salt does, it does two things. First, it kind of breaks down the proteins that are around the muscle fibers and makes them softer. And then it also brings the moisture out of the muscles and then rushes it back in. So salting it in advance improves flavor, it adds to moisture, and it makes it more tender. So I'm a huge proponent. I've been doing it to all my roasts. And so after you salt the turkey, then you keep it for a couple of days in the refrigerator. Then you take it out of the refrigerator, pat it dry, keep it at room temperature for about 2 hours, up to 2 hours, and then put oil all around it, sprinkle some black pepper, and then stick it into the oven at 450 degrees, where it will cook for about half an hour, and then you would tent it and then cook it for another 30 minutes, 16 minutes per pound for another couple of hours or so until 165 degrees. So you witnessed here how I was making exciting dishes for Thanksgiving. I hope that you will make them at home. I'm wishing you a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, to enjoy it thoroughly with your family. And please tune back to watch my other shows and find my recipes on my Facebook page, The Natural Cook with Anna Gershenson. Support for this program is provided in part by Guido's Fresh Marketplace.